This has shown me something really weird and interesting about the Fian champion. Maybe I'm looking into this wrong and hopefully you can let me know if I am, but we'll get back to that and do a deep dive in just a few minutes. Let's get into the list, shall we? Good morning, good afternoon and good evening everyone. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope that you're having a fantastic day. Today we're back with another troop comparison guide, this time with archers and crossbowmen, and we'll get straight into it looking at the archers here. So straight away we'll take a few of the Fian champion stats with a grain of salt because it is the only tier 6 unit on this list, with it being a royal recruit. So we'll start off by looking at and comparing the other 4, and then we'll bring the Fian champion into the mix as well. So working from the top down, the Imperial Palatine Guard has exceptional bow skill, being one of the only 2 normal recruits with 160 bow skill, with average athletics, average one-handed. However, where I think it lacks and where I would probably recommend going with any other unit, though it has the strongest bow apart from the Fian champion, it is the only archer unit to only have 1 quiver in his inventory, so he only has 24 arrows. So yeah, okay, that's fine out on the field with quick skirmishes, but Palatine Guards in long sieges, especially as the attacker when they don't have them free refills, are going to run out of arrows very quickly. And one thing you might notice I've added on the end of this list as well is a weight to armor ratio, because I'm giving you the weight and I'm giving you the armor for all of these units, but what I really wanted for myself more than anything was clarification as to how valuable that is, how much armor to weight they actually have, and the Imperial Palatine Guard has the worst weight to armor ratio of any of the normal recruits. So despite the fact he has really good bow skill, that combined with the fact that he only has 1 stack of arrows, probably not a great choice. You'll notice I haven't highlighted any of the melee weapons in any particular color. That's because they're all very average. They all follow the correlation of the quicker the weapon, the less damage it does. None of them particularly stand out as being amazing, none of them are particularly awful. All their melee weapons are okay, apart from the Fian champions, which is really weird, but we'll get back to that shortly. Now, the Sturgian veteran bowman is exceptionally good compared to the rest of them in regards to the armor. His weight to armor ratio is nearly double. That is fantastic. And with the quickest melee weapon in there as well, in theory, he's much better in melee than the rest of them, which makes up for the very, very weak Nordic shortbow that he has. However, he also has the weakest one-handed skill, so his biggest strength is also kind of his only weakness, so he's not really great in any respect, honestly. So unless you absolutely have to, I'd write off the Sturgian veteran bowman, to be honest. Now, the Aserai master archer is awesome. Just like the Palatine Guard, he's got that 160 bow skill. Unlike the Palatine Guard, he has almost twice as many arrows, plus he uses piercing arrows which give a +4 damage bonus, as opposed to the bodkin arrows that the Palatine Guard uses, which only give a +3 damage bonus. Also, his weight to armor ratio is the best of the lot if you disregard the Sturgian, which we will be disregarding the Sturgian. So the Aserai Master Archer, I'd say I'd probably value above the Palatine Guard, and I would probably put him second overall, just behind the Fian Champion, maybe ahead of the Fian Champion because of what we're going to come to in a minute. The Kazakh Marksman, weirdly, the lowest bow skill of the lot. He has the most arrows of all the normal troops, with 2 more than the Aserai Master Archer, but his arrows do less damage. He only has the step arrows, not the piercing arrows, and his weight to armor ratio isn't as great. He has the least armor on the list, in fact. So I'd say Sturgian veteran bowman, no. Kazakh Marksman, no. Honestly, wouldn't go with the Palatine Guard because of the fact he only has 24 arrows. If you're gonna use one of the normal recruits, it really has to be the Aserai Master Archer. He's great. Now, we come on to the Battanian Fian Champion. Let me just jump straight in to the bit that's really confusing me. He uses the Highland Fine two-handed sword, but if you look at this sword in game, both the class and the type are down as one-handed. So is it a two-handed sword or is it a one-handed sword? If it's one of them swords that can be wielded as both, maybe I'm misreading it, maybe it could be a bit clearer, but the class and the type both say one-handed. If this is in fact a one-handed sword, his one-handed skill is terrible. If it is a two-handed sword, as the name of the sword suggests, not the class or the type, then his two-handed skill is awesome. But I've question marked that because I'm not sure. It might be just a visual typo. It could be an actual glitch. Maybe it is supposed to be a two-handed sword, and that's something Tailwords need to fix. From what I've seen, he performs really well in combat, so I'm assuming it is using the two-handed skill, but that's not what it says in the encyclopedia, so that's a bit hazy, which is why I've put a question mark by them. As you'd probably expect, his bow is amazing, and he has 64 arrows. He is never going to run out of arrows. With the extra damage bonus on top, his bow is only 1 speed slower than all of the rest while massively outdamaging them, and a 260 bow skill along with 170 athletics. The Fian champion is still awesome, but his weight to armor ratio is atrocious. Yes, okay, he has the heaviest armor out of all of them, but he also is the heaviest. His chest plate alone is 23, which is more than almost every single other troop on this list, and that's including all of their armor and all of their weapons. So he's very, very weighty, which would make him a bit sluggish, but the 170 athletics probably makes up for that. Still, his weight to armor ratio because of that weight isn't great, but he does have the most armor out of everyone, so that kind of makes up for it. Overall, hoping that it's just a visual glitch and that he does use his two-handed skill, then the Fian champion hands down just crushes every single other unit out of the park. But if you can't get hold of him, or until you get the perk that lets you convert the forest bandits into Fians, then the Asarai Master Archer is also a really good shout. Now that we're at the midway point, just really quickly before we get into the Crossbowmen, if I could please implore you to hit subscribe, notification stuff, wherever they are, that would be absolutely amazing of you. And thank you so much. And now we'll move on to the Crossbows. I know I haven't done this for any other troop yet. Let me know if you want me to, but you might have already spotted I've actually put the mercenary troop on this list as well, the hired crossbow, because without him there was only 2 crossbow units in the game, so I wanted something else to compare. And it's out of the hired crossbow and the Vlandian sharpshooter. Straight away, let's look at the Imperial Sergeant Crossbowman and write him off so that we can look at the other 2 instead. The thing that makes him really bad is that he uses the hickory crossbow instead of the bound crossbow of the other 2. It's not as quick and it doesn't do as much damage. That, combined with the fact his weight to armor ratio isn't as good as the sharpshooter, and his weapon is both slower and weaker, along with a shield that has nearly half the health of the sharpshooter. He's just worse in every way. His stats are the same, but he has a slower weapon, a weaker shield, a weaker crossbow, a worse weight to armor ratio. He is literally just inferior to the Vlandian sharpshooter in every way. Now, the hired crossbowman isn't bad. In melee, he's not going to be quite as good. His sword stats aren't as great. His shield can't take quite as much damage. His athletics are only 120, and his armor's a lot worse. But if you're nowhere near Vlandia, or if you're just gathering up loads of mercenaries as quick as you can just to replenish your army, he's not bad. He uses the same crossbow, which is a really good crossbow. He has a higher crossbow skill, and he has higher two-handed. So I would definitely favour the Vlandian sharpshooter as number 1. The hired crossbow if you can't get hold of him, and the Imperial Sergeant Crossbowman if you just really, really want crossbowmen in your army, but I wouldn't recommend it. So there you go. I would say you can either get the Asarai Master Archers, or the Batanian Fians, Vlandian Sharpshooters, and hired crossbows. With them 4 units, you should be fine pretty much no matter what part of the world you're in. There are other ones for ranged units. Of course, having some ranged units in your army is better than none, but if it's a choice, they really don't compare. That's it for this one. As always, I hope it helped. Please let me know if you have any other thoughts, specifically if you know anything I don't know about the Fian champion, because that is really confusing me. And if there is any specific thing you want me to focus on when we do the horse archers in a couple of days, let me know to make sure I don't miss anything out for you. Once again, thank you as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.